Good afternoon, everybody. Edward Leos here, publisher of the Hotel Guide for the last 30 years. Actually, one of my favorite things in the world to be doing. And we actually launched our Travel Talk podcast right here on the podcast. With me is one of my really good friends. We've known each other for years. She's a world traveler herself. I do not want to steal her thunder on telling me a little bit about herself. But we're going to talk a little bit about fall travel. But this is Jennifer Broome, and I'm excited to have her on the podcast. How are you doing, Jennifer?
I'm doing great, Ed, and I kind of like how you threw in there the reference to thunder, because as you know, and some of your listeners and viewers and readers may know as well, I was a meteorologist for a long time in San Antonio and in multiple cities across the United States before I started traveling pretty much full time.
And just being able to travel is one of the fun things in this world. And so, we've always stayed connected since you've been here in San Antonio. I'm actually in San Antonio. Where are you located right now? I know you had got some adventures going on.
I do. Welcome to my hotel room. I am in Fort Lauderdale. This is the Conrad Fort Lauderdale Beach. It is just absolutely gorgeous. It's a Hilton property.
Nice. Awesome. Looks beautiful. I mean, we're being able to travel and enjoy the world as we know it is always a good thing. And so that's one of the things that's always connected the two of us together. And so, as we're coming into the fall season, we just said, hey, you know what? Let's do a couple of podcasts and talk a little bit about some of the fall travel trends. So you're an experienced traveler. So I thought, hey, why not to bring you on and talk a little bit about fall travel and the trends you're seeing. So what are some of the things that you're seeing on tap with fall travel?
With fall travel, I think some of the big things are it's a great time if you're a solo traveler. It's also a great time if you're a retiree or if you are couples that are traveling, partly because I would give you kind of three reasons that I think fall is that secret travel season. The first one being, quite frankly, the weather. It's typically phenomenal, especially as you get into October, getting into early November as well. A lot of folks want to go see the changing leaves. But the big thing is that you still get those warm afternoons, but you get the cold nights and those crisp mornings. So if you're a hiker like me, it means you don't necessarily have to get up before dawn to go get on the trail. But I also think that fall is that season where you have less crowds. And that's a big, big thing, especially as solo travelers. You want to get in there and experience those national parks, get in there and experience those historical landmarks. It's a great time to get those without the crowds. And it's also, look, we all love to save money. And it's kind of the season of great deals and discounts to really take advantage of them.
You tapped on a couple of things, obviously the weather. So I'm like you, I like to be outdoors. I'm a marathon runner and I'm in Texas. So the Texas heat is just killing me right now. So I'm like waiting for that fall season, but being able to be outdoors and kind of experience those things, you want to do it in a nice environment. You don't want it to be like frozen, but you don't want it to be 105 like we are here in San Antonio.
Yes, I mean, you guys have certainly had quite the hot summer and early fall in Texas, and you do want to look for those different places. I think that this time of year is great for the wellness traveler. It's great for the adventure traveler, really to get out and explore those different areas. And wellness, you can be anywhere from where I am, here in Florida. It's a great time to visit Florida. It's not as hot typically. Still a little on the humid side, but that's, you got to expect that when you're close to the ocean. So it's a great time to visit somewhere like Florida. It's also a great time to go and experience the Southwest and go and hit those popular places like Moab, the Four Corners, which both of those will be in the path of, we do have an annular eclipse coming in October. It's going to pass through San Antonio. San Antonio gets a double whammy. You get the eclipse in October. You also get it in April. And trust me, I'm going to be there in April for the total solar eclipse. But, it's a great time to kind of, if you are a hiker, a biker, or just want to go and see some fantastic landscapes. And it's also the season that you can get those kind of, the first snowfalls that are happening in places like Colorado or Utah, and, where you can see the snow up on the peaks, but you still have great driving conditions because it doesn't stick around very long.
No, exactly. As we're leading into the little snowfall opportunities, one of my favorite times of the year, I lived in Missouri for a couple of years. And one of the things I loved about the Missouri area was there was actually seasons. compared to San Antonio. And so one of my favorite seasons was obviously fall. And so you see the
Yeah.
leaves changing and just how beautiful they are. What are some of those places that you've been or you see, hey, great for those leaf changing times of the year?
Well, you automatically have to think of New England just because they get all the colors, with the beautiful maples, they get those vibrant reds, they get the yellows and the oranges. Just one of the most iconic, not only in the United States, but really around the world. It is one of those spots that you really do want to go to. And if you get that opportunity to go to New England, I strongly recommend going to Acadia National Park. It is a unique place, one of the first places in the country to get the sunrise. And it's just a spectacular experience. You can drive easily. There's a great loop to go around and enjoy. A couple of other places in New England that I would recommend. Burlington, Vermont is a great area to go to. And then I also love it's a small town. It's Jackson, New Hampshire. And there is where you have Mount Washington, which if there's extreme weather happening, it is one of those places that always get picked up by media outlets around the world. Where they get hurricane force winds and beyond. Last winter made for the cold temperatures and the extreme wind chills. But it is one of those places that the drive up and down that mountain is spectacular. So that's kind of New England. Another one that I love is the Shenandoah National Park.
Okay.
Skyline Drive is fabulous, and this is in Virginia. Coming through that, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And then you can drive down into North Carolina. You can hit the Blue Ridge Parkway, and then that can take you on into Great Smoky Mountains National Park that sits right there on the state line of North Carolina and Tennessee. So you really do get a great driving experience there. Now, if you want to go west, of course, where I live in Denver. So, I got to give props to my Colorado. And partly because of the aspens. It is a very popular fall destination. I will say it's kind of been discovered, but just a few spots that you might want to think about hitting if you come into Colorado. Breckenridge is one of the first spots to see the leaves really peak, and they typically peak about September 18th to September 25th. It's just because Breckenridge sits at 9,600 feet. So it is one of the higher resort areas. But there's a drive there. It's Boreas Pass, and you can connect that with the loop on Hoosier Pass. Great little loop that will give you some wonderful mining history. You can head to Steamboat Springs in northern Colorado. Typically peaks in late September, early October for the colors. Highway 129 is a great one there. It's got two lakes. One that's a small, beautiful alpine lake. It's called Pearl Lake. And then another larger lake called Steamboat Lake. And both of them are just absolutely spectacular. Another one that you might want to do is I'll take you down into Southwest Colorado. That's going to be the $1 Million Highway. It runs between Ouray and Silverton. It's about a 25-mile stretch of US 550. And that $1 Million Highway, supposedly, it cost $1 million per mile. There's a lot of legends to it. There may also be $1 million worth of gold that's put in it. It really does go back to the mining history in that area, especially Silverton was a prime mining district in Colorado. But along that drive, it's one of those where you're white knuckled because you have those hairpin turns. There is a sheer drop off on the side. Yeah. I mean, it's sketchy in spots, but it is absolutely beautiful. And then, in Texas, I sometimes think that people don't necessarily think of, our southern states as some prime fall destinations. But as you get into late October and November, you get the fall colors there too. And in Texas, Lost Maples is iconic. It is just 100%. One of those beautiful, beautiful spots in the hill country.
No, Lost Maples is one of my favorite places. And then Shenandoah, it's ironic you brought that up, but I've actually been out there, and it's just, I've done some hiking out there, and it's just beautiful, beautiful country. And particularly in the fall time, it's a perfect time to go and visit and just really experience, life in general. It's just really, really cool.
Yeah, I would agree. And just to kind of give you another leaf peeping tip,
Okay.
if you can go on a weekday, you will have less crowds. You do have to keep in mind a lot of these places can be fairly popular on, say, a
Oh,
Saturday. And then also, I think it's fun too when you're leaf peeping. Try to think early in the day or late afternoon. You will miss some of the crowds, and you also get kind of different colors, and different shades of the golds and the reds and the oranges. It's just be that early bird, or if you don't want to get up early, be that late afternoon or early evening.
well, yeah, it's definitely got to catch the golden hour, for all the photographers out there in the world and people who like to
Yes.
take their photos and selfies and kind of, have the opportunity to showcase where they've been. I mean, that's one of the good things that we have going on in this world is be able to record the places we've been and be able to go back and look at them. I was actually, ironically, Facebook popped up a year ago today. I was in Destin with several friends in Seagrove. So it was pretty cool to be able to do that. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about some of the great leaf peeping places. We'll go from the local chapter, but what about international travel? What are some of the things that you're seeing with international travel right now?
With international travel in the fall, I think it's a fantastic time to do some of the urban
Mhm.
explorations of major cities.
Okay.
Places like Paris, Rome, London, those iconic places and cities that are filled with so much beautiful architecture and so much history. Those places that, quite frankly, are overrun during the summer. In the
Yeah.
fall, you don't have to fight the crowds. You can actually get into the cathedrals and get into, the popular attractions, say like the Louvre or, the
Wow.
Colosseum.
Mhm.
And you have better weather. Like if you're doing some of the outside things like the Colosseum, you have better weather to enjoy it. So I think it's a great time to think about going to those bigger cities. Plus, you can also get better deals on the hotel rooms in those cities. And then it's also that time of year that, if I was planning a bucket list trip, I would plan to go to Asia in the fall. Southeast Asia is so
Oh,
high
okay.
on my list to go and do those places like Thailand. Those are those areas where people, want to go or go on a safari in Africa, whether that be a hunting safari or a photo
Mhm.
safari. When you're thinking where are some places to go for those bucket lists, it's kind of the prime time to be thinking go fall. Less crowds is such a big thing when you're going on your bucket list and you're spending your hard-earned money. You want your biggest bang for the buck. You also don't want to have to fight the crowds. So do your bucket list trip in Southeast Asia in the fall.
That's a great tip. And you're actually a perfect segue. It's like we know we're going to be talking about here, but we went from Southeast Asia, how are we going to save a little bit of money, bucket list. Well, let's kind of wrap this up, this first segment, and let's talk about what are some of the great deals that you're seeing for fall travel. Any great tips, any ideas that you can kind of let our guests know about?
I think one of the biggest things is, for example, I'm in a Hilton and I think you should be involved with getting points. Get points where you stay, get points where you fly, get those points because they can make such a difference. Partly because, when you're with, say, Hilton Honors, for example, I am on my Hilton Honors status points. And with that, you get those nice little things like, the complimentary water, the free
Yeah.
Wi-Fi. But one of the really great things is that if you are, say, a Hilton Honors member, then you're eligible to get a upgrade room stay if it's available. And don't
Mhm.
be shy about
Yeah,
asking for that. If
100%.
you, yeah, yeah, but it really does help you if you want, if you're, whether it be Hilton or, or another hotel chain, it really does help you if you are a member
Mhm.
of their points, their member programs. And you can also find too, I think you get I used it, spa discount, not gonna lie. I took
Yeah.
myself down to the spa, got myself a little massage and got 20% off. You can get 15 to 20% off. It's
Mhm.
pretty standard. And it's a little bit easier to get those spa appointments and things, during the fall. And you also you can rack up the points. Look at who the hotels are partnering with. For example, Hilton Honors partners with Lyft. And so you can be earning points while you're taking your ride share all over the
Yes.
place. So I think that is a big thing. I know closer to the end of the year, almost exclusively travel on my points. I want to get all my airline points to keep my status. Um, and think that's kind of my gift as I get into the last quarter is use the points, save yourself money, take advantage of it and use them. That's a big one.
Well, it matters, and I think those are great tips, great ideas, and it's just a matter of just getting the access to the properties and utilizing the savings. You know, going to a property, even free bottled water when you're staying at a full service property is worth money. I mean, you go to some of these properties, you're like, oh, $10, $5, whatever that is, it's
Yeah.
still money in your pocket. And when
Food and beverage credit that you can get when you hit certain levels.
oh,
It's
100%.
all worth it. I love saving money.
Well, you brought up some great points. Look, I really appreciate you being on this first segment. I know we're going to have you back to talk a little bit about some non-traditional opportunities with travel and wellness, but I really want to thank you for taking some time in your trip from while you're in Fort Lauderdale and giving the audience some great tips for fall and fall travel. So, for anybody who's on this podcast watching us, please follow us on thehotelguide.com. You're going to see us on Spotify, all the great channels. They're actually, the little icons are all on the screen right there. But Jennifer, thank you for being on this show.
Sure.
And I look forward to having you back for the second segment. Take care.